Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Beth Hutton. I am with the League of Women Voters, and I welcome all of you today. I thank you for being here. I hope on the way in that you noticed that we do have our voter's guide. I want to explain that we are very mean to the candidates because the Board of Elections doesn't certify the list of candidates until almost the end of August, and if we want to get the paper printed by the time early voting starts and by the time we have candidates forums, some of the candidates do not respond in time. However, if they respond later, their answers are included on our website. So please, if you're missing a candidate in that you wanted to read about, check our website and see if they have gotten it in later. We are going to have our candidates in two groups today. First, we are going to talk to the Court of Appeals candidates and the state rep candidates. Then we will have questions for them. And following that, we will change places and have the candidates for county office come forward. So with no further ado, I would like to have you stand and we'll say the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Our first candidate for the Court of Appeals is going to be Judge John Eklund, and I just want to thank him for coming. He's not opposed, so he didn't have to show up, but he's being really a sweetheart and coming to all of our events. So thank you, Judge Eklund. You have 3 minutes to speak, please.
Thank you very much, and thank you all for allowing me to be with you today. I apologize for the lack of a tie, but we're recarpeting the courthouse these days, and I was told last night all of my furniture was being moved out of my office and the computer and everything else, so I thought working from home might have been a little bit more appropriate than trekking down to Warren to an empty cave. So I appreciate your indulgence. And as has been suggested, I am running unopposed in the general election. I had my opposition in the primary, and thanks to the good people of Lake County and the other 5 counties that constitute the district, I was successful in that effort. And so you might say, what are you doing here, right? And I'll tell you what I'm doing here. I believe every public official, elected, appointed, or what have you, has a highest and most important responsibility. And that is to do everything that they can to establish, maintain, or enhance people's confidence in our system of government. That includes the state Senate and the legislature, where I served for a better part of 10 years. It includes your zoning inspector and your zoning commission and your board of zoning appeals. And it certainly includes the judiciary. And there are many, many ways for someone to try to do that job and achieve that objective. But one thing that I do know is it cannot be achieved if you don't get out and talk with the people and engage them and make them understand, not just feel, but understand that they are part of that system that we're trying to enhance or create or maintain confidence in. And so I'm most grateful to all of you for your willingness to participate, because it tells me that you understand that and you have the confidence in the system. And so that people who have been elected here in Concord Township and Lake County over the course of time are certainly attaining that. And I hope very, very much to have your support this year so that I can continue that process in everything that I do. With that, I thank you all so very much, and thanks so much to the League for everything that you folks have done over the course of time. Thank you.
I neglected to say that his office is for an unexpired term. He was appointed to that office, and as he is unopposed, he will be reelected, and he will have a 2-year term left. Is that correct? Okay. Our other two candidates.
I'll run in 24.
Okay, that's a promise, right? Then our other two candidates for Court of Appeals, they're running for the slot that will begin on February 9th of 2023. They drew for order, and our first speaker will be Thomas Wright. He will have 3 minutes, and then we will hear from Mr. Lucci for 3, and then they will each have 2 minutes.
Thank you. John, you made a good decision. I left the courthouse and your office was completely empty and down to bare cement, so you made the right call. Good afternoon. I am Judge Tom Wright, and I have been your judge for the last 12 years on the appellate district. I was first elected in 2010. By way of background, I went to the University of Toledo College of Law, graduated with honors, served as a teaching assistant for first-year students, and was a technical editor on the Law Review. Those credentials allowed me to seek and obtain a judicial clerkship. My very first job out of law school was serving on the 11th District Court of Appeals, where I now serve as the presiding judge. I worked with Judge Ford there, where I learned the art of judging. I would review all the briefs of counsel, research the law, look at the record, and prepare draft opinions for primarily Judge Ford, but other judges on the court also. So that's where I started. It served me very well. I left the court after a 3-year clerkship and went into private practice, where my practice consisted about 95% of litigation. I've tried probably 30 to 40 jury trials. I wish I had kept count. I was told to do that and I didn't, but that's a good estimate. I've tried civil on the defense side and plaintiff side, and I've done criminal defense. After 10 years in practice, the lawyers at the Mahoning County named me Lawyer of the Year for performing outstanding legal work. As I told you then, I was elected to the bench in 2010. I've served as the presiding and administrative judge for 3 out of the last 5 years, where I take care of the day-to-day matters, deal with preliminary motions, budgetary issues, along with my other work that all the other judges have. I have been appointed by the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court to sit on 5 additional appellate courts where I've decided cases. I've also sat on the Supreme Court of Ohio. So that means I've sat on a little more than half of the appellate courts in this state. Down to 30 seconds, I'll wrap it up. In Trumbull County, the Bar Associations conduct polls in 4 of our 5 counties. Trumbull County, 9 out of 10 lawyers prefer me over my opponent. Lake, Geauga, and Portage County all deem me highly recommended. And just this morning, I got the endorsement of the Cleveland Plain Dealer, Cleveland.com, in this race for serving with high distinction. So thank you very much.
Our second speaker for the position is Judge Eugene Lucci.
Thank you to the League for hosting this event. Civic education, particularly in regard to the judiciary, is very important because judges are very restricted in what they can say to the public. My legal career started 47 years ago. I started working the streets as a police officer. And as a police officer, I made many felony arrests. I saw people at their worst. I've interacted with the public in very important ways. I worked my way through law school as a police officer. I practiced law for 20 years, a lot of that simultaneous with being a police officer. I was elected common pleas judge in Lake County in the year 2000, so I have 22 years of experience as a Lake County Common Pleas Court of the 47 years in legal experience. I obtained my bachelor's degree at Case Western Reserve, my Juris Doctor at Cleveland Marshall, but after I became judge, I also enhanced my judicial education and received a degree, Master's of Judicial Studies degree, and pursuing the doctorate degree in Judicial Studies. I completed all the coursework and have yet to write just the dissertation. As a common pleas judge, I've heard about 28,000 cases, tried about 400 jury trials, issued about 1,200 search warrants, and sentenced about 8,000 felony offenders. I am endorsed, exclusively endorsed by the Fraternal Order of Police, and the lawyers that know me the best, the ones that actually practice in front of me, have always rated me between 92 and 97% approval. I don't know more than 3 lawyers in Trumbull County, and I know very few in Ashtabula and Portage. But I hope for them to get to know me. If I can get your support on November 8th. I am well known in this community. I've been president of many boards, community organizations, including Leadership Lake County, and I believe in public education. I've brought every Leadership Lake County group, and there's been 4 of them every year for the last 22 years through my court. So on November 8th, I would like you to do what my wife says every night. I love Lucci. Thank you very much.
Judge Wright, you may have an additional 2 minutes.
And is it 2 minutes for
Whatever you want.
whatever? Okay, I hit the highlights, but going through, again, I realize that most folks who are going to watch this and most people here today have probably never read any of my thousands of opinions. So it's hard for you folks to know whether I'm doing a good job. And I can tell you that the lawyers know my work. And I always say, if you need a good surgeon, ask the doctors. If you need a good judge, ask the lawyers. I am universally highly regarded in our district. As I said, when I ran for re-election in 2016, I was highly recommended by Portage County, highly recommended by Lake County. That cycle, I was the most highly rated judge in Lake County. Trumbull County, I've always been their preferred candidate. That is my hometown, where they know me best. Geauga County, both last time and this time, have given me a 92% favorable rating. I'm actually the highest rated judge on the ballot, and there's 8 of us in Geauga County, not including Judge Eklund. They didn't rate the unopposed judges, so I'll leave you out of that. And again, so I've been doing a great job for 12 years for you folks. I'm constitutionally eligible to give you 12 more. And it's been an honor to serve, and I'd ask you to vote for me, re-elect me, Judge Tom Wright, this November. Thank you.
Judge Lucci, you also have an additional 2 minutes.
Thank you. Since we're talking about lawyers knowing best, this cycle in Lake County, which is a much larger bar association than Geauga, probably 3 times the size, voted me as the highest endorsed over all judicial candidates. I'm talking about the 6 running for Supreme Court. No offense, Judge Eklund, you too. and Judge Wright.
By 1 point. By 1 point.
Actually, it was 2 points. But we won't quibble about the decimal. So, I'm an open book. For 22 years, all of my decisions, and I know you've heard of my decisions because those are the ones that make the paper. And so, you know where I stand, you know how I judge. And I read the law and I apply it the way it is. If the law is stupid but not unconstitutional, I enforce it the way they wrote it. The way to change it is to petition your legislature to change it or to repeal it. So that is my constitutional duty, to apply the law as it is written, and I've done that for 22 years, and I have a solid record of proof of that. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to switch gears and move to the candidates for state rep for District 57. I'm still learning the new number, and I'm still trying to figure out where the lines are. But we are looking forward to hearing first from Evan Rossborough.
Well, hello, and I would like to thank you all for coming out tonight, giving me the opportunity to speak to you all, introduce myself. I know for every one of you here, this is most likely the first, maybe second time you're hearing me speak, and so I probably have a lot to answer as to who I am, why I'm here, what qualifies me for this position, and what I hope to accomplish. So to get into that, I was born and raised here in Lake County. I actually grew up right down the road in a blue-collar household, primarily raised by my mother, a single mother, and had my father's come into the picture more later in life, but that's a different story. And so I attended Riverside Local School District, public school system here, then furthered my education, graduating it from Lake Erie College with a wrestling scholarship. And so I'm appreciative for that, because if it wasn't for that, wrestling was a great opportunity that really opened my eyes to how much education can benefit your life. And so I double majored in business management and marketing at Lake Erie College. And so, but it was later in my career at Lake Erie that I really realized that my true passion was in public policy and regulation. And so being that I was on a scholarship, I stuck around there for a while. And so my last 2 years at Lake Erie, I really dedicated all my time towards those studies as much as possible. And so in that time, I started reading and talking to people at every opportunity I could, trying to figure out what issues were on top of their mind. At that point, it was 2018, so that election cycle. Now at this point, this election cycle, and it's the common themes. And so the biggest three that I hear from people my age and people of all ages, and walking, canvassing, speaking with voters, it's been economy, environment, and education. And so those are three things that I've really made the pillars of my campaign. And so education, as it pertains to funding for the Fair School Funding Formula, the new school funding formula that has been passed, and then as well trying to allocate funds to vocational training. And what we need to do right now is really boost up our skilled tradesmen. And so right now the cost for that type of work is increasing, and it's because we don't have enough people in there. The other one is economy. And so economy as it pertains to the middle and working class families. The philosophy of regressive taxes or trickle-down economics, it doesn't work. What we need to do is we need to boost our economy from the bottom up. And so letting that then trickle upwards and stimulate business and so forth. And so I hope to do that by cutting taxes for small business owners. One thing, my mom and dad are both small business owners here in the district. And so I think I've worked for both their businesses as well, and so I think I have a good idea as to how business functions and what it needs. Last one is environment. And so currently, Ohio ranks 44th out of 50 states in environmental rankings. And so we are not doing nearly enough right now to address this need. And so as a young person hoping to raise a family here in this beautiful state, this is something that needs to be addressed as soon as possible. And so I hope to be elected to address these issues. And again, I thank you all. My name is Evan Rossborough. I'm a candidate for state representative.
Our second speaker for state representative is Jamie Callender.
Thank you. It takes a lot of nerve to stand up here and say, vote for me. And in today's environment, we don't have as many young people willing to do that as we did in past days. It's kind of an unpleasant environment sometimes with the name calling and the dirty campaigning. And I want to thank Evan for standing up and running. I wish it was against somebody else. But I just want to thank you for doing that, for researching the issues, and for stepping forward and offering your service. And I think we all would do something unusual. A round of applause for my opponent. We're living in tough times. We're living in transitional times. And it's important that we have folks in our elected positions that have the experience and the background to be able to deal with those issues. Evan brought up two of the three issues, well, really all three issues I've actually done work on. The Fair School Funding Plan. I actually wrote that and was able to get it passed last year. 18 years they've been trying to get the Fair School Funding Plan passed. We almost got it 3 years ago. The person who's now Speaker carried the bill, but wasn't quite able to get it across the finish line. This year, this session, we were able to do that. Now, it's not fully funded yet. We're hoping to do that this year. But I'm quite proud of that, and I'll stand on that record. As far as working to protect the lower income segments, we've worked over the last 4 years that I've been in office on the Finance Committee to lower our state income tax. The goal is to eliminate it, but we've been lowering it, and the way we've been lowering it is by lowering it as a whole, the whole percentage down, so that what was 4 years ago, the lowest two income brackets are below zero. So now you don't pay state income tax until you're into the middle class, which allows folks to keep more of their income, especially those that are in that income bracket that need that money for childcare, for daycare, for making up the difference between what health insurance used to cover and what it covers now. So we've really made a cognizant effort to do that last couple of years. On the energy sector and the environmental sector, that's a whole can of worms. Most of you know I've been involved in that over the last 2 years. But one of the things that's really important is to try to make Ohio and this nation energy independent so that we're not exposed to the whims of foreign governments and foreign events. I worked really hard, along with a number of people in this room, to save the Perry Nuclear Power Plant, saving that baseload generation here in Ohio. And thank you very much.
Mr. Rossborough, you have an additional 2 minutes.
So yes, it is easy to point at my inexperience. Jamie has served in the State House for about half of my life, just about. And so that is going to be a hard thing for me to speak against. His knowledge of the issues is vast. I mean, there's no question about it. But what I want to point out is the fact that the Republican Party has controlled the State House now for a solid 12 years. And so in this time, in 2010, Ohio was ranked 4th in education. Currently, we're ranked 31st. And addressing the issue of funding with the new School Funding Act, that'll help this. But there are so many other metrics. We are currently ranked 34th in economic standings, with our median household income falling about $10,000 below the national average. And so people of a certain party offer legislative solutions, but they're slow to act, in my opinion. And so I've been a Democrat my whole entire life, and I'm proud of it. I was raised in a household on old school Democratic values, supporting labor unions, investing in our economy, investing in our infrastructure, providing a good public education to students. And so these are the fundamental values of my beliefs. And so I believe it is my party that has the correct answer here. I don't hope to sow in discourse or bad feelings with anyone here. I'm running because of the ideas and the philosophies of the Democratic Party, and I think it genuinely reflect the best situation for Ohioans. And I thank you.
Mr. Callender, you can finish the thought or move on to something new for 2 minutes.
Well, I will finish my thought, not his.
Right, yes.
Just wanted to make sure which one I was supposed to finish there. As far as the energy independence, right now, Ohio only generates about 85% of the electricity we use. Now, we're bringing in Intel down in near Columbus. Honda is expanding, and we're looking to put some expansion of the Ford plants up around Lorain. All of those are high electrical energy use facilities. Now, we're going to work with renewables. We're going to try to bring in wind and solar to the extent we can to work on that. But that's not enough to provide the baseload generation. So we as a state are buying our power from other states. So protecting the nuclear power plant, trying to expand our clean, non-carbon producing power sources is critical and is something that I have focused on. There's one other area that is really beginning to bother me more than it did, and that's health insurance and health care. We have insurance companies right now that are making medical decisions, at least in my opinion. If your doctor calls in a prescription, we have insurance companies declining to cover that prescription. In essence, deciding that they're smarter than your doctor as to what you need is a medication. I think we need to stop that practice. There's a few ways we can do that, but that's a project that I'm looking to take on, along with fully funding the Fair School Funding plan over the next 2 years. I hope you all will see fit to send me down there for another couple of years. I think I'm an effective legislator. I think I've done a good job for Lake County. I think I've earned the right to be reelected, and I would appreciate your vote. And Mr. Rusbro, at some point in the future, I might even vote for you, because I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Okay, at this point, I will entertain questions for any of these gentlemen. If you direct one to a specific candidate, I will also let his opponent speak. When you ask your question, please tell us your name and address, and make it a question and not a 5-minute speech. Okay. How much time? We usually don't even time their answers. But if the candidate, wants to run on for 5 minutes, I might pull my middle school teacher thing and kind of walk up on them. Okay. Do we have any questions from the audience? Yes?
I'd like to address the question to the two candidates for Judge over here, Judge Wright and Judge Lucci. My name is Ed Zivkovich. I live in Painesville, just a short trip down here for me. But what I would like to know is, what do you struggle most with as a judge? What part of being a judge do you struggle most with?
Judge Lucci, would you like to take that first?
Probably the most difficult thing that I, as a judge, struggle with would be pressure put on the judge to decide something in a certain way or to rule in a certain way. The newspapers sometimes, not so much now than in the old days, but the newspapers would write editorials on how they think the judge should rule on a case that's being tried to the bench, maybe in the middle of trial. There are other pressures that are applied by the public in general, bloggers, things on the internet, maybe on Facebook, maybe even legislators. And of course, legislators know that you can't apply improper influence. But probably one of the biggest is resisting my own urges. I don't have a vote personally in what I do. I have to resist my own concept of what I think the law should say or should have been written. So I have to apply it the way that it is written, regardless of my own personal feelings. There are many times I don't like a law, and I've said this before, legislatures are allowed to make stupid laws. They're just not allowed to make unconstitutional laws. So I think remaining free from undue influences, including my own, predilections with probably the most difficult part.
Thank you. Judge Wright?
Thank you. You know, I would echo a lot of what was just said. There are outside pressures, but it's not a struggle to ignore them. You know that's your job and what you need to do. I agree also that the law is to be applied as written. It does not come down to any judge's idea necessarily of what they think the outcome should be. It's what the law dictates. I wish I could remember which of our current Supreme Court justices gave this quote, and I'll have to paraphrase. But he said that if you've been a judge for any amount of time and you haven't issued an opinion you don't like, you're probably not a very good judge. And that's the truth. The biggest, I would say, I wouldn't call it a struggle, but maybe quest, is at our level court, the Court of Appeals, you have your trial courts. Every one of them can be automatically appealed to my level court, the appellate court, by just filing a notice. And so that case will get reviewed 100% of the time by our court. The struggle for our court is we know that the Supreme Court takes about 1 out of 20 cases. So 95% of the time, you're our last stop. So my struggle is to do my very best to make sure that the result is what the law dictates. And I do sometimes. I said last night, I'll take cases sometimes, they're kind of ready to go. I could get them out, but I want to think on it just a little bit more. And I call it putting it in the slow cooker after it's done. And you come up with wonderful thoughts sometimes while you're just driving down the road that you can add to an opinion that are helpful. And it's also important at our level because the cases that we issue now control in all 5 counties, and all the trial court judges are bound to follow those cases. So it's important to be very precise in your language, not be sloppy when a trial court judge is trying to apply a precedent, to make sure that it's very clean and very precise. So that kind of precise writing and decision making is what I endeavor to do, and I guess you might call that within the definition of struggle. Thank you.
Judge Eklund, would you like to weigh in on that? Or...
Very briefly, I'm new to this, relatively new. I was appointed took the bench on 1st of July of last year. And prior to that time, I had been a lawyer for the better part of 42 years, working for clients. The last 10 of that, I also served as a state senator. And for all of that time, in both of those positions, I was an advocate. Sometimes I got to choose which side I argued for, and sometimes I didn't. But I was always an advocate for clients, their cause, constituents, and their cause. And I kind of liked it. There's a certain confrontational aspect to that always appealed to me, and got pretty good at it. And I knew when I became a judge, there's only one thing for which a judge can advocate: justice under the law. Justice under the law. Doesn't matter who I thought should win. I wasn't being paid by a client or paid by constituents or seeking election to anything that would cause me to vary from that. And I knew it going in, a different breed of cat being a judge. And nevertheless, I'd say for the first few months I was there, and I'd see these cases come in, and I'd read the briefs, and I'd study the record, and found myself creeping back into the advocacy, drawing me back. Who should win this case? And it took a lot of discipline to put that aside, put it out of my mind, and I've done that ultimately. But that was an interesting exercise, and I feel as though I've been able to accomplish it. But the recognizing and keeping a laser focus on the difference between what I did for 42 years as an advocate and what I'm doing now, I don't think it's so much of a struggle anymore, because it becomes a sort of a second nature after a while. But that was kind of an interesting exercise that I went through. And otherwise, I will tell you, to call what I do now a struggle would be, I think I'd be kidding you, because it's a great job. It's a wonderful opportunity to be purposeful on behalf of the people. And I must tell you that the atmosphere in which I've been able to work down there in Warren has been very supportive and very engaging and very helpful. So I consider myself the luckiest man on the face of the earth, to quote Lou Gehrig, if you don't mind. But so that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for our candidates for state representative? Seeing none, I will thank these 5 gentlemen for being here, and I will call up our next group of candidates. I'm going to just draw for order of speaking, and then we will continue. Okay. I neglected earlier to point out our 2 timers. My husband Bruce and also Phyllis Wilcox are here with the League and timing. I also have to apologize because somehow I didn't get the list that Mr. Kilboy is here, and he's running for U.S. Congress, and I'm going to let him speak. His opponent is not here, so we will give him 3 minutes of uninterrupted time. Mr. Kilboy.
Good afternoon, and thank you for providing the opportunity to speak. My name is Dr. Matt Kilboy. I'm running for the United States Congress in Ohio's 14th Congressional District. I was born and raised into a blue-collar family right here in Northeast Ohio. My grandparents bought a farm in Deerfield 60-some years ago after moving from Cleveland, and I live on a corner of that farm today. I was the first in my family to go off to college. I studied sports medicine, worked in that field for a little while, really enjoyed it, but had a calling to do more. I returned to Kent State University to study nursing, and upon graduation, I commissioned into the United States Navy, where I served about a decade in uniform as a Navy nurse, caring for veterans, service members, retirees, and their families. I was stationed mostly in Mid-Atlantic, deployed, traveled the world, did all those great things. After leaving the service, I went on to work for the federal government, first working for the Department of Veterans Affairs, where I worked in the office that oversaw the 3 administrations within the department. Frequently reported and briefed the Deputy Secretary of the VA. I left that job to go work for the Department of Defense, where I worked specifically in the office that oversaw congressional and legislative affairs for the military health system. I left that job because I was pursuing my doctorate degree after leaving service, and it got to be a bit much to go to school full-time and also work full-time. So I was approaching the end of my time in school. So I left that job to pursue my degree. So I was ending my time in school and was trying to figure out what next step I wanted to take, and my next step was running for the United States Congress. I'm running because I believe our country deserves better, and I believe Northeast Ohio deserves better. I took an oath to protect this country and our Constitution when I commissioned, and I will take that same oath on January 3rd to continue to serve service to our country. There's a number of things that I think are important to this country and important to Ohioans. Most important, at the top of that list is healthcare, education, and public infrastructure, public services, which all bolster and support our economy here in Ohio. Healthcare is more than making sure people have health insurance. It's making sure people have access to health care. To me, as a nurse, that's extremely important, and there's a difference between the two. Education. We need to ensure children have access to pre-K. It's been shown over and over again the huge benefits of children attending pre-K. Colleges and universities are important, but my focus is on vocational programs and community college. And then lastly is public services, public infrastructure. It's bridges, roads, sewer, water, electricity, the whole gambit, but also to include things like high-speed internet and cellular service. So again, my name is Matt Kilboy. I'm running for United States Congress, and I appreciate your vote in November. Thank you.
Thank you for reminding me you were here, and I again apologize. We're going to move on to there are 2 races for county commissioner. The first one, is for an unexpired term, so it will be a 2-year term rather than a 4-year term. And the 2 candidates are Maureen Kelly and Richard Regovich. And I'm going to begin with Maureen, who has 3 minutes first.
Thanks to the Concord Township trustees, the residents, and the League of Women Voters, both for your interest and the invitation to be here today. Good afternoon. I am Maureen Kelly, and I am running to be your next commissioner. I'm the daughter of Irish immigrants and a first-generation American from a blue-collar family who's lived in Lake County since kindergarten. The eldest of 5, we would often be dispatched to babysit, cut the grass, or clean for a neighbor who was in need or had a sick child. We learned early that neighbors could reach out and care for each other. My parents, while very light on education, were wise beyond measure and instilled values that guide me to this day. After graduating from Ursuline College with a BA in history, I began my career in education, teaching on the grade school level. While working in healthcare administration, I obtained a master's degree in public administration, the very degree that prepares you for these positions. Subsequently, I taught on the college level in the business schools at both Lakeland and Cleveland State. In 2008, I ran for elected office as clerk of courts, a position for which I proudly served for 12 years. My very first initiative was requesting a performance audit from the state auditor. Any recommendations for best practices were implemented so that every dollar was handled properly. I was the first and remain the only county person to participate in this voluntary process. I managed the legal division, improving the systems and operations, taking us to the next level of technology. Taking seriously my obligation to be a good steward of taxpayer dollars, title offices were relocated and renovated to better serve the citizens of the county. I took the title bureaus from the verge of bankruptcy to a strong financial position by making strategic decisions and cultivating relationships with stakeholders. Excess funds were transferred to purchase vehicles and shields for the sheriff, computers for the prosecutor and the coroner, and both common police courthouses now have generators as a result of these funds. Systems were implemented in both divisions to serve the public during the pandemic. Now, I want to take these experiences to the Board of County Commissioners, where I will take on the following responsibilities to keep us safe, to protect families and seniors, to strengthen our community, but most importantly, to tightly manage finances. We don't have to look outside of Lake County to see that elections have consequences. I have a proven track record of sensible decision-making and solid leadership skills. Ask anyone who's worked with me. I have the education, the experience, and the energy to make a difference on the Board of Commissioners. My website is votemaureenkelly.com, and on November 8th or before, remember Maureen Kelly for Commissioner, and I thank you for the privilege of your time.
Our second speaker for that position is Mr. Richard Regovich.
Good afternoon, and thanks for having me here today, and thanks you all for coming to listen. I am fortunate enough, I grew up in Willowick with my 5 brothers in a 1950s bungalow where my mother still lives. I think I had an idyllic childhood, and the fact that I brought my own family to Willowick to raise them there. When I did move there, I wanted to be part of the community. I started Hearts and Hammers, which helps neighbors and people that can't do things in their yard anymore in their house, and it continues today. I'm proud to say I'm still the president of Hearts and Hammers. I don't have as much of a role because now I am the mayor of Willowick, and I've had the privilege to serve for over 6.5 years. My reputation as mayor is being able to work together with the cities around me, with the mayors around me, to leverage funds to help get things done as a community. Our communities on the west side are all 1950s based, and we have to upgrade those communities. But I realized one thing in my time as the mayor is unless you feel safe in your community, in your home, in your schools, and at work, you can't get anything else done. So my priority is safety. And when I need safety now is way different than it was 10 to 15 years ago. We used to test for police force, test for firemen. We'd have 200 people test. Our last test in the city of Willowick, we had 8 candidates. Are we getting the cream of the crop nowadays? So we need to put more boots on the street in all aspects of this county to make sure people feel safe. We need more people, not only because we deserve that coverage and we deserve those people there, but because we need the people that we do hire to feel safe. They can't go on calls by themselves. It's not a desirable job. Are we going to get the best people out there to represent and protect our county? I believe we need to make sure that we have enough adequate coverage on the streets. We need to look at our prosecutor's office. We need to look at our sheriff's department. We need to even go to the court systems. Those all are filled with people that we cannot afford to do without. And they're being taken every day by other counties and other areas in private practice and those kind of things so that they can make more money in today's economy. So that's my first priority. I also want to open up and have our greatest asset in Lake County is the lake. Part of what I would like to do is have as much access for people to get to the lake for our enjoyment, for us to use. And that goes to all waterways. We have beautiful rivers that flow through this county. We need to use those for our enjoyment, our benefit, hiking trails, walking trails, and as much as we can to make this a desirable place to live. Thank you, Rich Regovich.
Ms. Kelly, you have an additional 2 minutes.
Generally speaking, these 2 minutes are for rebuttal, but I have no reason to attack my opponent, and he's had no reason in this campaign to attack me, and really that's refreshing. There are some differences, though. We differ in party affiliation, we differ in gender, and probably the greatest distinction is I'm 5'1". So, but instead, I think what I'd like to talk about is, again, this being a 2-year position. This being a 2-year position, it's going to go by in the blink of an eye. So I've already done some serious thinking about what I want to do as soon as I hit the ground. Again, this is an unexpired term, and therefore, as soon as the election is certified, whichever one of us is successful takes office. So one of the things that I have said that I want to do is to meet with all the departments under the authority of the Board of Commissioners, just to see what lessons we have learned from the pandemic, to see if there are any of those lessons that we can take forward to actually innovate Lake County. We obviously had to do some things through technology on the fly. Let's see if we can perfect those so that people can actually interact with the county on their iPad if they choose to do so. The other thing that I would like to do is to, I've heard from a lot of folks as I'm knocking on doors that the commissioners' meetings are at 10 o'clock and on a weekday. So I'd like to look at the feasibility of having at least quarterly one meeting where we would have it in the evening at an alternate location, where we'd have an opportunity to feature perhaps one of these services that we're trying to promote for people. So again, those are just some of the initiatives I hope to install when I become your next commissioner. Thank you.
Dragovich also has 2 minutes additional time.
Thank you. I was 5'1" in 5th or 6th grade. So another thing I'd love to do, I had the fortunate experience in the last 2 days to attend an expo at South High School yesterday where they brought in high school kids to look at different manufacturing jobs here in Lake County that exist. There's a lot of jobs unfilled. And today they had a ribbon cutting, AWT in Menor, where these kids can go and learn how to use these big machines and expensive machines to get into the manufacturing field. I would love to go reach out to each school system in Lake County and give kids that aren't necessarily going to go to college, but give them the skills, soft skills they need to hit the ground running when they get out of high school. Give them an expectation that we need you to go to work tomorrow. You're going to work from 7:30 in the morning to 4:30 in the afternoon and possibly overtime. We're going to train you to do that. We're going to show you how to sit and do an interview, sit and make a resume. Those are things that we need as a county. Let's manufacture workers here. We can do that. It's easier for legislators, it's easy for us elected people to, instead of dragging a company here and promising all these tax incentives, I'll give you a tax incentive for every one of those kids we hire out of our school system. And every one of those, then we get to keep that talent here. We're known in this county for losing our young people to bigger cities like Columbus, Chicago, everywhere else they think that is a better time, a better place to live. Let's point out that, no, we have it all here in Lake County. And you can stay here, make a living wage, and have a great career. Thank you.
The second race for county commissioner would be a 4-year race beginning January 1st of 2023, going through 2027. Our first speaker for that position is Mr. Adam Duzdiak. Did I say it right? Was it you were first? I'm sorry.
I'll go.
No, Mr. Fetchman, go first. I wrote that backwards.
Hello. My name is John Plechnik, and I am the son of John the Baptist. Now, you know there's a story behind that. My father came from Slovenia when he was just 11 years old, and he had no idea that his legal name was John the Baptist Plechnik until he went back in his 70s to sign some paperwork. But our family fled to Ohio because of the political disruption and the chaos caused by communism taking over Eastern Europe. And so Ohio means a lot to my family because we wouldn't be alive if it hadn't opened its doors to us. And so it's very important to me that we continue to serve and make sure that Ohio is a great place to live, work, and retire, because the world is still a dangerous place outside the United States. And even as we face our challenges, we're doing great things in Ohio and in the U.S. I want to introduce myself because this is my first conversation with most of you. I graduated from college when I was 19 years old. My father was a professor, so I was a bit of a hopeless academic, but I majored in accounting. And I went from there to Duke University School of Law to get my Juris Doctor and practice law for a few years in New York as I earned my master's degree in tax law at New York University. So I have degrees in accounting, law, and tax. For most county offices like engineer, you have to have an engineer's license. Or coroner, you have to be a doctor. Prosecutor, you have to have a law license. Commissioner, anyone who is a registered voter and a resident of the county can run. But just as you wouldn't want to hire someone to be your brain surgeon who wasn't a doctor, and you wouldn't want someone representing you in court if they weren't a lawyer, I think you really do want someone who has studied and understands taxes and budgets if they're going to be voting on tens and sometimes hundreds of millions of dollars, your taxpayer dollars and expenses. So I'll admit that it may not sound exciting to say I have degrees in accounting, law, and tax, but it's exactly what you want to hear when you're hiring someone to make decisions on your behalf with respect to tens and hundreds of your taxpayer, millions of your taxpayer dollars. When I graduated from law school, I spent a few years practicing law as an attorney, doing mostly executive compensation, employee benefits, and tax work. I then spent 2 years in Washington, D.C. as an attorney advisor to a brand new judge in the U.S. Tax Court, where I taught part-time at Georgetown University Law Center. That confirmed to me that I love to teach, and I wanted to be a professor like my father before me, and so I applied for professorships. Now, when my father applied, he got one offer in North Carolina. When I applied, I got a few offers, but one was from Cleveland State University, and I've had the honor of being a professor there for almost 12 years now. I didn't look to run for public office, but my neighbors kept asking me, and here I am. And I look forward to telling you a little bit more in my next 2 minutes. Thank you.
I guess this is my day to admit mistakes. So now I'm introducing Mr. Adam Dudsey.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you so much to the League and Concord, and thank you for having this event. I'm going to get right into this. We only have 3 minutes. So my name is Adam Dudziak, and I'm proudly seeking election to be the next Lake County Commissioner to fight for accountability and to promote the interests of the people of Lake County. At the beginning of the story, I graduated from parochial school when I was younger, and I'm one of 7 children of a religious and military household. My father was a Marine and fought in the Vietnam War. My mother was a teacher and then a stay-at-home mom. My mother and father taught me to be about service to the country and the value of our Constitution. These parts of my upbringing instilled in me a drive to serve my community and country and to always help my neighbors. I am married to my beautiful wife, Valerie, who is a nurse practitioner at the clinic. We reside in Mentor with our 2 beautiful children, Tommy and Anna. And both of my children attend our public schools here in Mentor. And this keeps me absolutely invested in the success of this community. I not only want us to get us back on track and work through this challenging economy, but find ways to ensure a successful future so my children and yours have exceptional jobs and opportunities to return home just like those that came before. Too many of our talented young people are finding other places that are offering better opportunities. That is not acceptable for your children nor mine, and we have too many resources and phenomenal people to not be at the top of this list. I have a master's degree in education from John Carroll University and an educational administration degree from Cleveland State University. I have dedicated the last 16 years of my life serving in our public education system, 11 of those years as a principal in the Mentor schools. My teaching and public school administration positions have taught me that although our schools can show success, which they do, there are also many people in our communities that are struggling. I never asked if a teacher, student, parent, or community member was a Democrat or Republican. I didn't care if they were rich or poor, and I didn't care if they were at the top of the class or the bottom. I just helped and served. That is not what we see right now in politics, and I'm asking for your support, and I challenge you to help me change this system. I pledge as a commissioner to fight for what is best for our families and taxpayers. I will work closely with the sheriff, the courts, and the prosecutors to fight to keep criminals off our streets and our communities safe. And I will work tirelessly with the Board of Elections to ensure free and fair elections. I will fight against the ripoff of taxpayer dollars, and I will be dedicated to promote the needs of our citizens to avoid waste and political motivated spending. And I will strive to find ways to cut taxes and make Lake County more affordable for our seniors. I've been saying this phrase a lot lately. Talk is cheap. You know, we all stand up here, we say a bunch of things, and then we all know what happens when people get elected. I would ask you to challenge me and challenge all of us to make sure that we are doing this for the right reasons. I did that in school, and I look forward to doing that as a county commissioner. Thank you very much. My name is Adam Dudziak for Lake County Commissioner.
Mr. Pleshnik, you have another 2 minutes.
Thank you. So I first stepped up to be a library trustee because I was asked to. Some community members from Willoughby Hills knew one of them were retiring, and they said, as a law professor, we think you'd have a good perspective on budgets, and we'd like you to step up. I never thought about being a library trustee before, but I love libraries, so I said yes. After we balanced our budget year after year, I was asked by my neighbors, we've got some budgetary issues in Willoughby Hills, we'd like you to run for council. So I said yes. I'm very bad at saying no when my neighbors ask for help. And we won 3 elections in a row as the top vote getter in all races, got even more votes than the mayor. And I don't know how we did it, but I think it's because we did a good job. I didn't run for commissioner last time. Someone else ran a great campaign, and someone else won. But commissioners like President Hamercheck called me and said, there's a vacancy, we need someone to stand up and take this role. So I applied. I've always come to the table when my neighbors have asked me for help, and that's why I'm standing here today, because the work that we've started isn't finished. I agree, as George Washington said, deeds, not words. Actions do speak louder than words. And I'd like to say just a little bit about what we've already achieved and what I'd like to complete over the next 4 years. I'm the only candidate who's actually cut taxes in the past. I was very honored when Willoughby Hills formally thanked me for passing the biggest sewer fee cut in our city's history and following it up with a second. And we worked hard to cut our fees for seniors. I proposed and passed a 25% discount for our seniors, low-income seniors, on our water and sewer fees for Lake County. I'm proud that we were able to increase support for law enforcement by providing Lexipol to every police department with a $1.2 million investment from the county and a new training facility for the sheriff's office that will also be open to all law enforcement. And we provided our townships with a COPS grant to immediately get more deputies on patrol in Perry, Concord, and Paynesville Township. So these are projects I want to continue working on and I want to grow. And with great partners like State Representative Jamie Callender and judges like Lucci, I know we will. Thank you.
And Mr. Dudziak has 2 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you, Adam Dudziak. I just want to say this, that, this has been a pleasure of my life. My father was a union steelworker. He was in the Steel Valley of Cleveland. It was everything from Republic Steel to LTV Steel to Middle Steel and so forth. He was there for 44 years. And I can say that, his union job, I didn't realize it when I was younger, but I realize it now. His union job is what got me to this point today. I was hired in the Mentor Schools at 29 as an assistant principal, and that's not very common. Most people would say, don't you have to be an old person to be a principal? And I'd said, I worked hard. I worked to get here. I'm proud that I could send my kids to the same school that I was a principal at. And, as a commissioner, I think it's important that we make sure we fight for the system to make sure it works for everybody. I think some people will say that the system works very well for the rich and the powerful and those connected. But I think a lot of people in this community are struggling right now. And as a commissioner, I vow that I will always fight for our unions. I'll fight for our hardworking teachers and our students and our neighbors. And as I walk door to door, and I've been doing that a lot lately, a lot of people will say, number one is they don't see a lot of us in the community. They're very surprised that a candidate or an elected official is actually at a door knocking. But also just a leader that's present, being willing to work with both sides. Right now we have a very polarized political system. And as I said in my original 3 minutes, I said that as a school principal, it was never about Democrat, Republican, right, left, or anything else. You walked in the door, whether you were happy with the system or not. I said, what can I do to make this work for you? And I believe that's what we need more of in leadership. I have a proven track record of doing that, and I look forward to serving this community as Lake County Commissioner. Thank you very much for your time.
The final office for which we're going to hear is Christopher Galloway. His opponent is not here today, so Chris, you have 3 minutes.
So you'll be giving me his 5 minutes, so I get 10? No? Oh, is that how I thought?
Some of us are getting hungry.
Oh, okay. Well, Beth, I appreciate you saving the best for last. That's right. You're very clever. Again, my name is Chris Galloway. I am your Lake County Auditor, and it is fantastic and thrilling to be back here in my hometown of Concord Township, where I served for over 14 years as a township trustee and currently serve as chairman of our joint economic development district that we have with the city of Paynesville. And like my time as a trustee, my focus as your auditor since being appointed in 2019 and then graciously all of you re-electing me in 2020 to the position is to focus on the public service end of what we do. There is no part of county government that the county auditor's office does not touch or is not involved in. And it has been my focus and my goal to increase transparency, efficiencies, and improve technology in the office. One of the first things I did was put the county financial data on ohiocheckbook.com so that all of you can see at any time exactly where every single penny of your public dollars are going in this county. You can go in and you can look by categories, vendors, all the different manners of which you can search and look at data to know exactly how the commissioners and other office holders are spending your dollars. That was really important to me because I think transparency is key. Additionally, I've put a real focus on training in the office, technology upgrades, and making sure that our office is focused on public service, being able to provide services to our senior community, things like making the homestead exemption process more efficient by putting those applications online so that folks can do these things from the convenience of their home. And I'm proud to tell you that, and you'll see something on this in the near future, the Department of Taxation has chosen Lake County to proceed with a pilot project for doing electronic filing of all sorts of forms, not only from the public to the auditor's office, but the auditor's office to the Department of Taxation. I spent a number of hours trying to convince, and other county auditors, the department that they are woefully behind technologically and that they needed to upgrade. And so after a number of meetings, the tax commissioner came to me and said, Chris, you've been an advocate for this. We want Lake County to be the pilot project, the first. So we're going to work with you to implement and improve our processes down here in Columbus. I'm proud of that kind of progress, and I think that's a reason why in 2021 I was honored to be named a distinguished auditor by the County Auditors Association of Ohio, and being so in my first term. So if you are all kind enough to re-elect me, I will continue to roll up my sleeves every day and apply that same focus over the next 4 years in serving each and every one of you here in our beloved community. So thank you.
Are there any questions for any of these candidates? It must be dinner time. I would like to thank Susie Cobb, who I believe stepped out from Concord Township, for helping us set up this event. I would like to thank Rick Woverish.
Don't feel bad, my mother still can't pronounce
for videotaping this so the whole community can watch it. Just a little reminder as you leave, a lot of the candidates have brought things. Please check and see and take some of their things so they don't have to carry them out. I have also brought absentee ballot requests for those of you who would like to vote absentee ballot. And there's also, you have about 3 days left if you would like to register to vote. So if you're not registered, there are also registration forms out there. I would ask you to fill it out today, and I will take it to the Board of Elections on Tuesday, which is the deadline. Early voting begins next Wednesday, believe it or not. So, yeah, I'm sure all the candidates are very thankful. And I appreciate all of the candidates from both sessions for honoring the rules, for being respectful to each other and to everyone. And thank you, and remember to vote.